Hello, can I be 1 hour like that? What is it?
Hello, a very good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be watching us. Nal tendo nal jayi atal mi al nako wado wate al kananan jang al kakafuma Facebook live and in TikTok and in YouTube pour kaje ko nale kacha kula mi al naka ba dending bankola kola nim ku ko tan dol mi al nako wala kiren society kono bidum na min so jang wala tuba mare mi al nako is a data scientist, a data analytics, a data architect. I mean all those things are correlated by the way. Yes, so nakaja biya wa tugula mina wala mi anaka ba dending CepRass research mingi ama me bake ya opinion pool nyin nake perceptions min ke defende wala mola mira cold ye walta la inen banku dingol tema andum fanan adiamu nar sianin chocho ketanye lafin na ko anin din na ko pour ka mo samana bi nay kaja mo mi anna ko londi lukar mo soto ni ata number sol wala mu control la ko la ani kamen ko mandi data pour ka ja ko nay kaja na jibe nin data ay muna firin ka don ko number 15 wal ni wol dita mo la nin percentage ni wol dita mo la ko kolya bake pour mo liya famu bake ay muna min andum jama mo la ka findina mi anna ko ila londo mo luka je bake ka diamu ko la mi anna ka bade ni wo sifa nyina so andala nim podcast jang na jawa kumala bake pour kaje ko kam mo sambana mi alno ko ala londo luka do fanani na pour kaje nay kacha kula mi alno ka bade ni wo sifani na jani wodum tuwa isama na samandala bija
Nge konto mbake Aliou Job kumare bake kana jandurong ni mole kaja mbafle assalamu alaikum jibe lalbe dawda lamoy lalbe dawda alnimbara to nyalen Paul fintitale Gambia dung politiko mukuti me alon ko farma kol be diamo be siarende December 2026 manjam fakorenke bare be 2026 kono le sain kariyate olen janing December tema kuteje ko denke so nim polls findita polls ka kuma jamal lefo kuma jamal lefo da nyim CepRass la nyim polls to tada nyawo nya bari ngalo me mol mamandi ama mol ki jo fara bari as in sabro mol ki birta ko wala ba ko diamo siata je wala politics la society but beyond the politics kuma jamal for the polls kon mele alon ko anyanda banku dingol so la le akuma yata le so having me here purunga kacha ko lan tol ngaje nyamen ko polls se fero e polls report membondi an se kacha nga nyo la fa haklo la je anin ka la mo lal ni jubelal se nyo nse nyola fa kachala je dal because mo jamal kachata kola so to ngaje lari nyame safo nyama we are also expecting another person ngalo Zambia maribe dunana but Ali thank you very much I'm happy to be here with you.
thank you so much tuba konna na bake bi ka futam fe jam pour kaje ne kacha nyin tamandi janim badun na kacha nyin fonkono tumo min na nyim pool sol finita no nan na janim pool sol ba finla no ya mun wono nyim fal ko nyanna findindiro ken ko le mi ala ka ba dending ñim pulo ñi na ko ñi kabrin pulo ñim filida no kabri inya boyta ka wala jani nya ba boyla ka mona kire tala miro to fananya
Kabirin a fintita o janna e finti ngunol ka kele to nyale me ngunguno sabu wala mbari CepRass fangole safaro ke nun ka itandi I think ila Facebook page too ka foko be press conference soto lale ni press conference soto e be la presentation kele so e media houses all invite je ana kibar janjande bundal ye invite le ka fo ko alsinal ye ka fuma pour be presentation kele nga Paul Menke o Paul ni another diam ku jamala democracy call be jele economic distress be jele accountability be jele call to action president term limits nyol baby jele performance services fighting corruption ku jamal le sota kono kabirin tanga moy koy kana presentation na Hakilo Mendina obviously is the political side of it. But Kabili report Findita, just looking at the table of content, ikajele report o kungo fango moment in the table of content jube, ika kibar kungo fango safe damento, isaje dorong idiamda tatam lalo, o tatam kono, yeah, performance on government la service wo baby jela, government la kaduka mol mako dokol to wol baby suffering jela, government la tamander bunyato ila leadership wol baby jela, institutional reforms. Inatata, me ya longo moli o muta kukuma bati wolen 2026 moli amira jumale be gagné la ning carte fayo keta anum fanan dolbe je mira rol siade je bari na fanan ka mol nyin ka adol be carte fay la jumale nin sama mo carte fayo di o ning aya tara ko oppositional kono nal madi barola adol be carte di la jumale nyin ka rol keta wo wodulal be karol bar nien na social media fabric jibe bi dia mol melu be keren dol be jama be je as abe sunding political side lela and not that of the the leadership and the corruption side, but that tells you ko governments are very much interested in the political side. They are interested in the December 2020 election. So abe dulale. So my reaction to it was that this is a good thing. This is good. At least the polls come to inform us, at least from the respondents' perspective. Kaita ni mola kuol menul be banko kang. Njigira nyina ko mbedu na wol kono le killing killing ka jaba keso woro moli ya kwa belani nyam.
Baraka bake tuba wo senata bake jama jama ni nyim pulsol findi da nan molka ika tuki molla mina na ko e famro so do bake ni ata number so lo ko pour ka je ka fadam fancy because number 15 o man femin visualization 15 ni aje da ke number so je dolba selin dolba jirin duma aka kolya bake pour mo ya fam bake kabring a pulsol findi da ngulngul siata kudul kundo and pour ka je ko na nyim jibe mi ala ka ba dending mi ala ka ba dending data mi ala ko ye wala shanu kun couple of days ago follow mi ala ka ba dending ko ikonin kate fo keta ye molni nin ka itab do iba kate di la jamala ke president baro nin kate fayta sama ya mira jamalo winna president baro wala candidate do mo jamal ya tan je ko mo koten do la iba kate fi di la mo koten do la kata mi president baro banda fon fe kabirin yin dedal nyin finita nun mba tra kana pour ka chat nyin bandi mi ala ko la fa diamro la fa nanyina very good so kabirin nyin ka roke nun iti amira jamal nyen na winna kate fo min kanana mbo jamal ko candidate dola ba winna wala mo 49% ke mo kono sidula tan nan nin kono kabirin nya nyin jenu moli he misconception wala misinterpretation of kedeje wala mo famo balia so je nin demandi fesa nyin chat ni sa explain no mo
Yes, for sure. So, chatting member screen to Jawala scenario 2T, if elections held tomorrow, so vote for president versus vote for another candidate. Sign, Eba Faila, president or a bang for Badila Modola. Mo Jamal ne Ajube Jang Barry and 34% Nyinkono, Nina about 66%. Wolema for Badila president. So that is not a good sign for the
I
incumbent.
think we are looking at different chart here. Nin chart do
No,
min
we are looking at the same chart. Take a number mean for I'm taking if you subtract 34 from 100%, mbawole jube kan. Everything manya tara suffering exactly. So don't worry
exactly.
about that.
Go ahead, yeah.
So hamba mniajem ko wolma for body the president. Men ko
Okay.
would not vote will be well on nima vote you are not given.
Mhm,
Don't know will fana ma for body and refuse will fana ma for body. So ngol for apart from menul body the president out 34% oh. So nina the 66 ngame for ten near will fengol baker for nyoma. I'll come to the 49.
mhm,
Wolenko mol menul yalo at least from the respondents mele jabiro ke sove nyinto kemo kono sirla tan sabani nani wolle ya itandiro ken tolbe carte di la president wala nin sama carte fayo ken
mhm,
sai menul ko another candidate ndol badi la mo koten na o mu tan nan nin konon tolde o sutiyata talante mola de nena menul ko etol de carte fango fayla o kata sibla naniti menul ko etol malon konon to ani menul balanta ka jabiro ke mol buka jabiro ko sebe kesonol bila dol se je se balanka jabiro ke wo keta sibla sabati so kanyim bondi mole nyoto wala president o gagneta nu 2021 a gagné no menna walen ko about 53 point something percent approximately ngamira fang atata for dolka for 54% sa jiben ole the president yeah 53% I would say approximately 457,000 a gagné wala 519 out of the electorate manually voting in 2021 but sa ni na ata nyin chato mol sove ya ita niko tansaba ni na ni la foko mbe carte di la president la so woman farman saro ko maitandi ko president is marching towards victory if we talk about this survey but the big question is mol mel kavo tannan nin konon to nyinto memman koy walen albadi la jumala dol nada foko anno iko yo tannan nin konon to fana nyinin kale sidla tan saba and in Lulu ko ibadi la UDP la. I think there's another chat that says that yesterday kabinga discussion sort of how to follow. But to be precise, Tanzaba ni nani ko ibadi la President Barola nyindol woto men tutaje wol ma kwendi bar mel fana ye kwendi lo ko wolen tan nani kono ko ibadi la modola. Woto wala fo ibadi la modola o yaitande la ko the president la in terms of voter intent ninga ota molla nganyo ka carte fay ninga ta nga sembendi carte même fayta nung wodo president obe jikane ni nata carte kondola karola
yami tandi jamula kumata bake president baro kabi election okita no 2021 akera modi mi annako kim ata kimo kono si la talu la tambide wala kodi wala you know
I call you talente mola e ka all for absolute majority I absolute majority win pa the results presented to the public and of course the one that is by the IEC that made him the president what tambita si la talul lale so atambita talente mola but sa ni na ata sovel membe finti kandeng ani mola korosol because ku jamale fota maybe wolle fane nyin ko inform ne sove jibe as a whole kuma jamale fota je banko la tamandir ñaato mol man konta mol mi la fo itandi mella mela le mol yela ni ku ya dali tandi je banko bi ka ñame maybe wole fane ñimbe inform kaje ko ndol mantra carte fa la president baro
the reason nyaje manchar ni master ni damin to mi alno ko president baroba lead kan molla mira ko do mimba karte win nyaje ma president no alia because for me I don't think that is relevant enough mba finil la jana but nyara jibe ni ko mole ko yamira jama election win ni kerte fere sama I think president Baro should even have 90% because yeah momo ni nga ka fere ko fragmented opposition they are not going to actually select the president me somebody else and then for you kamba for president Baro is going to win the election ni ata rin kare fokare sama so ibaja ko I mean the amo manya na sialo fanani na back wanyama you know imanya na focus na back wanyama I think this is the most important data me alno ko nyana nyatli na back tuba nyin data imuna tandila nyim fanani na ni ata jibe you know 50% ko nyin ni ata jibe ko
the one that you have in front of your screen for you are referring to the perception one
no mba nyina na sanden din ya nyem na firing ni ata jibe ni ata nim percentage 50% policy la bagambia ko man sanya na 50% plus one na sotala pour ka
yes, New Orleans, Baro definitely is not gonna make. I mean, yalo new fragmentation. Nakada more malo IEC be how many parties or how many candidates that approve. Sorry for for the national elections. Patil Seattle there, but is yalo neko more baby can make to the final race. More baby can qualify to to be at at the final lane to run the gold medal race. More baby kake. So atutale jelebe taraje bar nyin yitandiro membe jang nyin taman zero wolen ko hani ne adara ko absolute majority win nan president baro la absolute majority win ba kole ala bak nyin ka wole yitandi bari yal na kare fa mu simple majority la so nin simple majority la ba tulal fanan mo jelebe tarra ballot boxol bala anin jumale be gagné la wol kono you can win less than 34% and become president in Gambia. It depends on how much each have. Come kemo kono sur la tan sabanin nano isa fen gagné men do yata woti an wo ye president ya gagné Gambia wo tutale doron mo le carte fay nyaadi la anin mo jelle candidate jelle be ballot box wol bala ni carte fay lu mo sida ani mo moy jelle sota tuta woda mal bulu rek
yeah oku mada baka so nafti nan ndami wala mu nyin 9% o nyinti don't know mon min koy malam in election there is nothing like I don't know when you get to the poll you're gonna vote and 9% niata jibe ni taba haymala umu karte kisa jamal di banko nyinka famira opposition on nimma sakunda inyana mun kara kula kala pour ka jaka 9% o nyinka ka grab you know
comme abu ya mol menul koy malong e balon na le ni wolu mo sida malong kute man tra carte fay odo ni tata if you are not an invalid vote jang the malo the closest be kala refuse le right maybe yeta je ya carte fay amon futa dum or you know aban jolom box o kon I'm sorry call for invalid vote nya menul koy malong ning ayatari be carte fay la sarat right so ning wo lungo si de balon na so 9% ning is very important ning I'm a monkey campaign strategist, but obviously everyone knows me and if I say me for more to win their heart. Politicians are really good at that.
all right so kabrin to momin mba tala nyara demanding mba democracy jibela and good governance mi alna ko mole la perception of tandi
Hello, yeah.
nke mole yeah nka fol ko mba tambila nyara
Ali, we
demanding
can ba?
yeah I can hear you yeah loud and clear um so maybe so findi ena murna nyara ikamwela fo yeah yeah so tubalo fananya na tumando bada I think we can have him back yes tuba
But
ikamwela
Yeah, it looks like I'm still frozen. But Nika Moikan, that's what counts.
Okay, well, I think you will be back. I mean, in a proper safe very soon. So, but me for can bital nyata domandi yani.
I think someone was trying to call me direct, but Ngafuno Samba do not disturb. So
Oh,
that
okay, go ahead.
yeah, I'm 9% to member.
Mhm.
It's important, right? So Nimwal, I'm not a campaign strategist, but politicians know how to play their game. All political parties and candidates. Need a campaign la and yalo ko molbe sade konon molbe na tundol kane banko kam menul yalo ko equator mali be karre fa la jumale. So it's the opportunity to convince them. Yedi am yego left ala karre fa ente ngalo no molbe jane mel fo mali be mol dol bablan de karre fa la because of A B O C. Di am ye convince ye di am molbe ye look at the crowd as if everyone don't know who they want to vote for. Then use that as an opportunity to convince them more. If they convinced, you diamu yela programs wife here for alasine dema niela hard we know and you are able to convince them it's a karefa, you know. But you know every indicator here is important. So more are used no. Niko be 9% jubela of our voter population. Womu fenka jamal. Nga womu karre kise jamal. That's about maybe about 86,000 plus individuals.
Close to 100,000 to be say, and then near 4% of fanalaje. Mini al nako will balantar purka for 3% on you. It's gonna go almost 100,000. Now, Roma Katrika Jamal.
Karre kise jamal tikai. Ni ba tala yala you know Asiata Ledal, 0.13 times. It's going, you just multiply the 13% by our current voter population. That is just an approximation. But then obviously we are expecting the voter population will fall. So ubekala karte kise jamalde. So the politicians and campaign strategies and party executives and everyone else have a role to play to convince people to go and vote.
Yeah, tuba ila kamera nyimanda takang
Okay, wait, I'll come back. Let me just
alright, tuba mare la fana nyina ba data nyina jibe kam ya la ka ba dending miata CepRass la ka fo mi na ko wala ka kisiro ke gambe banko ka mi ala ka bade den kate fe wala ko nyala economy balu wala ko la pour ka je ko ka jibe muna mo la hamen ko nyata jibe jama jama mul ka jakari ba ke ninde dal findi da banko kan jama bal bu ka faham ba ke mun na mu bari nyim fene mi ana ka kumare ba ke ni ada advance wall jibe ikake mola mi anna ko ika ni data ni ko mi anna ka bada ni sifa ni na ika na upload ni jere kende ka fon pour ka je ko kam mola perception lo anu pour ka je ko muna ba kerins banko kan wala sa da nyin kono isa je ko isi fon ma ko no nyamin ka kana upload ndi mo fanna nyin masa kunda fon ka kele jama jama pour ka je ko ka kana fulo nyi ba jibe la ay nyana ta la nyami banko nyin kan wala tina kuma da ba pour ka ku nyin jibe ma min jibe kan no wala mo data mi ala ka ba denim president balo ala darajo ba ji kan ba ke banko kana because nyada jibe ka te fo min keta no commanda demanding 2021 saw nyin kono kimo kono sidula talulu anin sab ay wala so do fanna nyin bo nyin data min fe da sandending atani je ko ala darajo aba ji kana demanding and then ala darajo nyimba ji kana demanding tuba so mbala fana damin jibe sanende wala mi ala ka bo dending fanna ko daw mi ala ka bo dending doku so da bali ala democracy aning mi ala ka bo dending o ko nyina min ka election on inform because these are the indicators janim bamuruna election charts on nyinka lafte yin firin nin demandi kabire nyin karo nyinke president barola masakunda fabita ko kana famanda ta ko kan jima bale nyakuya e ko masakunda manda ta ko kan mantara maral kendo kon but even with all that naje president baro keda modi mi anako jima bal ko ninka de feda sama o winna munati ne amira molde nyim perception on yiso
is that for the job creation?
yeah job creation and democracy and good governance.
Well, specifically job creation niajibe government's handling of job creation jang niajibe mo jamale ko
Mm-hmm.
very badly bijele fairly badly all those are bad bad is bad you know neither well no badly katara team of an is not good enough
Mm-hmm.
even fairly well is not good the only positive side is that mol menul go very well almost 4% like you know out of the people the respondents so ning sidula kemo kono sidula na ne ka go you are doing very well that is still a bad score that is a bad score
Mm-hmm.
so banko banku ka wasu nyina la ko do ko be siara jane do ko kendul be jane mol be melke kan do ko sifa be la ka tarjede
Mm-hmm.
asifa bar ni mol tada ye do ko men dream imo soro then ibe every option men na fane imo soro then isaje ko se ko le wala tana ne nyin surveilla indicators jube here in terms of job handling. Even the 43% men go very, I don't know, very badly and fairly badly. Mel found ko malong, wol malong. That means that is still bad. Ni mo ka fa ko malong for do ko be jam farja wata tije. Na be nji te ofala. So imam menje ka for la malong. All those are not good for the current government. At least this survey, the way it came out, the way things are, all these indicators, majority of them, Fendeje may president with favor, even though BT Lola Nita and media to media lamoy from Ministry of Communications and other places small be bafaka ne doko beken doko kering. Sa yena soveke survey results kaitan diko kemo kono mo jamale diam da kafo ko doko mandara kering. Governance area as well pretty much the same thing because what governance area trusting the president that term debate and all that support for presidential term limit will be wala kono but the indicators are as things are motije sidla kem wokono mo jamal bebe presidential term limit let's say 84% indicators will iten janko bebe presidential term limit tol trust in the president pour que la president wala kwa bala dogo kala no mol menul sidla kemoto mol menul mol asiata mol kono menul be ko imalla president be banko samba kankule that term mandate as well. As more it weakens the democracy for President Barrow to go for that term. So indicators in governance, stability, and also job creation are not all good indicators for the current government. So where kujamale for Bankola Tamandir Nyadu?
Tuba sam betadun da into context now kadun call for jato nyin gonna send them barring election wala kana bangoka kabin to momin na yen chat bondi ninka teba fela sa ba kate fela jamale still now opposition leading opposition party UDP ikeda modi mi annako they are behind NPP banyar opposition or jibe tele opposition or nyar demanding regardless of UDP la internal disputing or not internal disagreement or sorry. Better still, UDP happens to open a gap between them and other opposition party. Kabiria Ninjanu, what comes to your mind? What is your take on this chat?
This is the intent to vote, right?
Yeah, yeah, this is the intent of vote.
So, well, if you look at the intention to vote for the incumbent, so
Yeah.
yeah, so intent to vote ni na reajibe on few occasions. Looking at you repeat an internal dispute. Perception siya or actually opinion siya dolia ko is a minor thing. Okay, internal dispute kettle, but what UDP always believes, so I can remember generally, my observation is that they believe their base is intact.
Mm-hmm.
Nico base is intact. They know well any individual who resigns and leave possibly will not vote for UDP. But how many people resigned and left the party? Near count among for the 20 people formally, for one thing, among for the 20 people. So losing after na according to media to every time Kafukar ko UDP endorse another individual join, every people join. So you could see the endorsements and additions in many sort of are actually more than the people who left if you just count by the quantity. Omol menul bota J, I for one, male influence long in terms of numbers. Ebe mo menjeli ya for baramale nyinte de abota J anulata ko mo wili wilo lebe bulala no makabo kafo kono mo wol J. Aning sabali nala darajo be kabrabo de UDP mami ko ay mo jamal sor menul bulata no makarte fayola karol. Den yena ni mo ko tangol menul bota J karfa sonko nyol kata talib nyol mo dol to interpret that into votes will be very difficult until a formal election takes place. But if this survey is anything to go by, Isajiko European call coming for code their base is intact. This looks very much like it code their base is intact. Their base looks very much unshakable. Because neither opposition or la Carola near 35% sort of opposition kono ibe tambila. Then in 1996, they do have 35% thereabouts voter outcome. And then the elections menul keta thereabouts beyond 1996 kana bila ni UDP lote faye ekajele ko they never failed to score 100,000 votes. Like 100,000 sort of like they have a lot of I have those numbers I can talk to you about that but this conversation is about the survey. 35% in maitan ko anisai mol menul la paka karte faye mol menul ko be karte faye ibe siarine niya compared to the rest of the opposition but yana ni intendube among the opposition as well Menul Beje is a men suite no jang, not the don't know part, as the APRC Noto Alliance. They got 11%, and that is massive. Barnina the DOI is 8%, GDC be 4%, and then you have APPA, so they
But
are
okay, some of demanding eco yatandi yako UDP going by this data. I come to perform the data demanding. But nyata jibe kafu mimpote kang UMC. Ikera multimana ko 7%. They are ahead of a lot of political parties minal nako iba nyintembo iba nyi race nyinkono. I mean, kabere nying ya UMC la nying data nyi amin sort attending. This is an intent to vote. Fima mirako ninyi la nyimu UDP la vote sol.
no, not necessarily Nyimu UDP voters. Some of them, as confirmed, would be the people who left and those who voted for UDP, and most of them are associated with UMC. Komba mba nanga fo mba mana fo manike kawal be diam komen. Ete nyin tala no ya fasar ko UDP tala nga 87% o hani. Niye o kebe mistake la along ko ndanga mol lon nete mol long mol be kering Gambia kono menul ka fo ko etol be talib ko to le bari mantra UDP kuto. Yalo wol be kering.
Yeah.
E ka mol jele fana melele alon ko ikoybe carte fayla dole carte fayno baro e kata oda paris bari e ka fole ko ni UDP e talib tambindi de ntol man tara je nyaaw nya mbe carte fayla talib yenne because Ahmad Baye comment ken during the Sugura rally ngamira ako the talib UMC la na the movement will affect NPP more than people think it will affect the UDP. And if this is anything to go by ngamre bol jale mo jamale bi je menul yale malafi UDP kula for any reason well known to them, best known to them, but ibelafrin talib kola. That is well fine. So isina ko maybe will reflect the jammo. Ni UDP tase tarnoje, but na jong ya miro e meitande na wolen ko molle bota dula dolto menul nada kakafu nyinto, not necessarily ko UDP la base letter. 35% is big. You don't compare that to any other percentage here. So UMC, yes, it's a UDP la dole tango barase adango se doya, but na mirror or wolenko they definitely will take votes from other places more than they will take from the UDP.
It is crystal clear from the data ko bijankoni opposition on nara nyokang. There is a possibility that President Baroning is a boiling no fan. Looking at this data right now, niya bakandani APRC not alliance. Ikera moldimiana ko your percentage jamal soto when it comes to this. Kabire ni inya boyda APRC not alliance len performance nyinga. What comes to your mind? Muna na de la miro.
Babili Masa. So APRC Noro Alliance, yes, more be bulula kai. Mo Jamal Camera phone dambale no amanke phone dambadi Gambia tundol bejele mol yalam e kamwe Gambia kono le fang e se tama eta blanto mol dol bafale ko ni yaje mabe nun jang nim babili be nun jang wo beje nin kudol keta banko kang especially mo fal na keta drong isay mol yafa jamme musa ala jam fata janna e kawol be moy e ka dol fam e ka ko it is actually better to have jamme than baro is because molia mira nun ko baro la nabe mol sambala position mento mamfuta woto but if jamme had been there jamme ngalong the biggest words against him walling ala human rights abuses the men also that during ala water kono wale ya ma bake but when it comes to security and other people mo jama sembo diala katambi the current regime ti so APRC not alliance is support sort of like up till today there are people men ka jambe support up till today and it's hard to take people supporters from people yes you said terminal.
All right.
So
So
there are people menuli alonko ika fenko sotonole.
yeah. So
Sorry, Ali. Sorry, I just had a minor fenko. Yes. So what more be carrying? More be lavrin jamelale everywhere. Will be siarne, and that actually reflected here. And also in real elections, how many seats lebe APRC Noto Alliance bulu? The people menuli alonko they came through the seat of APRC Noto Alliance. Even to the defection ketale, I'm calling along at NPP. Baker K Baji Atelo Rafaye, Almame is still with them. And I think they possibly have other people with them. So, but need at the base, the electors, more menul ka karte fay. mol be jele ntanga mol menul siata fang menul yalo an bi ka babili le fon ndebota tundol to me yalo babili sembo so de je baake and that is the foni area so wo mol jamal be je ansa be babili komale and ni botot ani tata combo you can go to the serekunda ends the buddunka kundas the the talendings and so many other areas is menul kumano jambe kanuntel be jele APRC noto alliance kanuntel be jele anu ni tata ben wol fe in the survey yeah, a random tanyanya ni penta umolfi ba falen be APRC no alliance led. So that indicated here, that came in here.
Yeah, so in the from Kumomina Kate for local government election, Brikama, the guy signed, not the alliance like candidate name. He was able to score 27,000 votes. Okatandi still now, APRC, not the alliance, the symbol sort of back, especially
I 27,000 sort of. So what is he at? Jita is 6,000 something sort of, right? So that guy was ahead. So
Yeah,
it actually was like Yankuba CD and then that guy then Jita, right? It almost
yeah,
nano level.
yeah, yeah. That was the ranking. And then how about when it comes to the issue of APRC's APP Sobea as a contested in 2021 election. But with all that, Naje, parties all minal nako about doi and in UMC kera modi me anako the head of APP Sobea and Moliam Dola relevant jitala demanding. What's your take on this?
Well, MPPS so we are covering in that 2021 qualitative representation. Kemo kono sidla fla ye wole soto. PDOIS they have 4%. It
Mhm,
only was sort of right.
mhm,
Mama Kandale 12% sort of. But Nina Tanyi Soviet like the intent to vote for, if not the incumbent.
mhm,
If you so we are 6% left.
mhm,
That also indicates a rise for them. If like we are taking the perception or the assumption here is that this 1245 people is like across the country as a qualitative representation of our voter population and those intending to vote nina dako yasa manager opposition or apart from Iko Nimanta Karefela Baro. Yes, it's a rise for APPSOB, however, not enough because Jang, the victor is UDP followed by APRC Noto Alliance. The Melkafo don't know, but Umbalon Feba Fila, the Bafila May Molon.
mhm.
But as far as in a melon concern, yes, APPS will be a rise totally. ESA is on the rise, but is it enough? Not enough. Not enough.
Parties like NUP, Cabinet Ning Soviet Bakaka, Mala, Tara Jedabo Tombong, but they got 0%. I mean, what's your take on this?
But Janiba, okay, so I will come back to that, but just to know the Soviet timeline, give me 1 second. Uh, Nin survey came out when? When was this? This
They
is
said in
January 2026. Was it a Jada Tombonda? Well,
November,
I think that,
but the
but
survey
Malo
was
when they
done
just
in
studying in start. When they get
November.
data collect?
It was in November.
Oh, data collector in November.
Yeah.
Okay. I can, yeah, what a Jada Bomana followed.
Mm-hmm.
Well, NUP was there. So let me put it this way. NUP was Ejame, right? Ejame,
But
1% less sort of came Kono in our 2021 elections, signing data to zero. Let's say without the consideration of J Dabo, who is their current flag bearer, I believe.
mm-hmm.
Without considering that, which means, unfortunately, the demise of this guy Abdullah Jama Alma Ale Nemone Kavarokai. So maybe wala absent during this time, wale ajeleko NUP is no more. You
Yeah.
understand? Maybe that culminated to the zero. That could be an interpretation for it. And then Jedabo took over as a leader. Perhaps Ning another assessment keda or another sample size survey keda, maybe that would tell a different narrative. But maybe Abdullah Jambela ala belo kamala molsa amirako NUP te kirin kotenke mo manna foye ko ye intention ko karrefa ye bari membe nyaado ale o min doya. But sai Jedabo beji a prominent lawyer, well, outspoken. Let's see the intentions to vote for him, how that would be if another assessment comes on.
Great. So tuba mbitala nyara demanding time mintu jaman siaba ka bo mbitala nyara demanding mi ala ka ba dending niada jibe kabire kisiro ke about governance ni na ko ni na mo jimal mang ijigilate da ba ke president barolo ko ni na but with all that president baro covering yanin survey ni roll out akera mo dimi an na he was ahead of the oppositions. What do you think informed that?
Ndafango ku mirale. Let's say the perception for President Barrow to win mola miraro
Mm,
wabe win and bafla ko mo killing menul ma inten ka fa yalo nyin ko ni ajubi akamunta ke fiele ko ke theater role
mm,
kadum yemol menul nyinin ka doku soto be nyaadi e ko amantar beteyare economy be nyaadi amantar beteyare performance be nyaadi service auto amantar beteyare muna nyaadum kaya dum leadership dum amantar beteyare jumali be winna karre fawla e ko baro fo ñimɓe ñim a mantra beteyare a mantra beteyare ngamra wo mantra beteyare mbalia wole ka tinna ko isa mol se sobi ko carrede fayla bari comme perception ne be wo ñama in Gambia because ka incumbency bit one to one anana man soto na banko kan president saba nga wole soto baba jawara babeli mansa anim bi president baro wol kono jawara na ata nu ñame makala mutata but he was the first president ngale ye carre fayol kan however that went then jambe na ata through a coup d'etat Jammeh has been winning as an incumbent. But for Kareka Fire, in reality, Barry Molka like Karre Fire, Dol Sunyatale, Dol Fengara. But what has been from the IEC is that he was declared victor and he was announced the winner.
mhm,
So Puruka incumbent Bondi Sirango Kang, Banko Kang, member Sabatering Wallen Co. Senior Kilina Keta in 2016 through a coalition.
mhm,
Right? Maybe because the incumbent has always been winning, Molza Miracle, Barobe winner Kotenke. Anim fana maybe opposition all mol ya jele ko diamol be siari temale ko be siari temale mol da miraro je ko baro se winno bari ni na taw mo kilingol nyin ngebe carte fayla jumale ni ma jama man na tan ko be carte fayla baro because 34% is not a majority,
mhm,
so 34% la itando ite ibe carte dila la wotano be ko ita dila so jama na da fayta carte dila andu men ka mo samba state house men ka mo gagnendi wala carte fayori anu men sa itandi no men se sutiano carte fayola wala intend to vote because ne ate yenyi nga nimma tonya tano foye nimma fani a foye e ko nyebe carte fayola jumale ngay ko me carte fayola ali joble wodo lata ko ne atara ko ndebe tonya la wodo nen carte fayo si dam bita ngadi ali joble la anu wo carte fayo wala ka mo gagnendi so the perception does not make anyone wins. What makes people win is actually the intent to vote, which is the voting is what makes you win, and the closest to voting is the intent to vote, not the perception. So uh perception never unyama dolong. It does not necessarily translate into votes. Intention is what could translate into vote. Even the intention can change. Until you vote, we will never know. But ngamen fo doron perception ole be unyama mol ka ko incumbent be gagner lale bar dol sa fo imba fayla dol sa fo enta fayla.
We have 9 months towards the election, and then sign-tending near that GB Katakul Bakekana behind closed door. But still now we haven't seen anything of coalition building at some level. Even though Alva Salah have team Gambia, me alna ko alafa ka purka mols opposition or samanyo ka purka coalition on bill. And from the data, Sabatin Loco without coalition, likely President Barrow is going back to State House. Um, what do you think opposition should do when it comes to data related issues? Opposition on yanda musifa nyadi la kela simfa nyadi la tala nyada mi ala kapa den ning data and in pooling perception and stuff like this. Because now we have seen other position, disregarding it in other way around. I'll call it that way. Because if you're trying to justify, data with regard in academics way of this, I don't think opposition should do that. What's your take on that?
All right. So maybe opposition nanama wina fire without coalition. Wo wole be sabatering.
Mm-hmm,
But Tonya as a kenole amanke followed.
mm-hmm,
But as a kenole. So member soneala opposition also win a fire but ala soneara ngo bekela ning coalition o keta. What all and they can put a bigger fight against the incumbent. Mol be bejigri wala near near so if I'm jibe nyin karo de kadamem for do you think without a coalition something related to that kind of I think about 69% be coalition will be the shortest way. So any coalition from coalition incumbent from what we knew or what we know from the past, well in 2016, President Jame was about 40%. The coalition was about 43%. Mama Kande got there about the remaining. You understand?
Mhm.
Where Barrow came to power without the absolute majority. He came to power with a simple majority, not the absolute majority. Mo menul man carte fa Barrow in 2016 wala siata mele carte fa but anu atela ganyeda because it's a simple majority case. I am giving you that context. Katum, that goes on to say how important every number should be taken. Katum, borolen, me follow futata nyatu drong, iba waleta. Amanke
Mhm.
menta asiyata nyindol beti, honey, the person who win, that is why kafa a simple majority. And then wala tunafanangafa iko, President Barrow came to state us in 2016, not with an absolute majority, with a simple majority. Melman karrefa, wala siyata media fired, but anwa tele nataka win. But so opposition should take this with all seriousness. Data ni membeja ninde mo politician odi kai ani atare memfo ana atara woman tara caring but ye diagnosis ke ko nyoko abelarin tenne. I will take it that way so that you can re-strategize.
Mhm.
You can actually campaign according to that, not according to that, but you can put that as a part of your campaign because ni konde ko kare kunda to ye e mo jamal bi je ko be karre file de bar nyindula do to mol man siaje woto mel yalo nga indication je ko mol man siaje nse energy spend je nse resource ninko resources wala yatra human resources mole taje ka wol convince ite se fengo fen no luala karoto bendi moral titata nin luwa tata pour que wol convince ka refa ye isake every party but ani dulame yalo ko ye sembo soto je isita no fanantol yabo ngo ah so fe ketal de equator de albe carte failan to le ala baraka bar anu wo murunta nande kaytan da alla ko alkana juri wo sove la de bar ndol fanan natale whether be it that sove or not nata kal dani al se carte fain tolle na le carte fain tolle a b c o d mbe wole kela nin ko mbe wole kela le that is for the whole country you know yaaje molla bata dal mu nyinati banko nyanda katara nyindula karle kolbe manieri ne yayi tan dilo ko nyim programme be la nyim kolle be la rentol bulu ko jikol to nin tol tambita nyaato me banku dingol ma ko le nyinela sa yalo mu promise let you know what that's something but if maybe nin do ku beje ye menke you can use, let's say everyone want to use your people in position ni UDP le ila chairmanol you know ila mayol menul be position oto is all project all tanol ye all display as an example ko nyule nyini nyine to nyama perfect but it left her to use this as a case study to tell you what we want to do, or actually as a prototype to tell you what we want to do going forward. So, but party don't be will mail a ball sort of in positions. But woman na kaitan di ko ite diamla no mole kaitan di la ko ndola faka ABC or D lake. So, sove ye fengo fen fintindi mol nyanta ka intelligence le taji kudol be jeta sonna wala dev that is also fine e ba outcome be kana me mol be favor nim ko be jeta balanta men nete man so menna amanjar fang ninte mo amanjar fanga wetandi mol mbo bulala kono tole and I will work on it. I think that's pretty much my take on that.
Alright, niata jibe ko yafu nyami with all that indicators kaja ko banko ba kolari ne economics ni mandara be yari mbake niata employment ni na kula mandara ta kan bake so be wala tandi but niata infrastructure jibe mo jama ka tandi la ko president baroba sidol do ko kan na I let so ke dal to mi na ko wal man wal nan man lampo jeri nyala ko niata kiang wal ni jara wal ma fa jibe these are some of the things behind the president baroko wala tandi mola. And I just want to drag your attention to what had happened in Fonyi. I mean, Fonyi by-election of member just standing, man chance of Diama Kuanyina. But
Mhm.
President Barrow happens to win Fonyi with small margin. What was your take on that?
How many people live in what was the margin? Is it 5 people or less?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, any almame diamtale, almame meitane. Okay, I je ganyele, but molla crossroad wale mo jamal man finde ka carte fay, even in Bantanjang. Almame membe nunje ka ponya don kaya ka mol, ke diam ye. Dal pour ye finde ka carte fay. Ate fa wala nyindo ay mo ke mol jele o mel sudi ata wala. Mel yalo itol fa wala crossroad fra kol manta carte fay because of malo inducement la keta je dul beje ye wol manda dalasi wili kilenda ye fendo di wala pour ka dal da wasi fal wol manyinya bari isina yakoro dintala nyaaw nyaade uma nantar ka refa ana reka voters card la table mala mo bentela voters card talam bulu anika $1 billion le dinna e kon kana ka refa nse ko ta nga sanchuni chala nga do nga muru nga tanga ka refa against you. I don't care about that. But then ku jamal leketa ndefe the true reflection of Fonyi would not be reflected in NPP. Near the inducements and all other shenanigans men will happen to behind the scenes mutunya men will for then that could inform accordingly why the NPP victory. But because it was a close call, that also goes on to tell you how much close that was a race. And Councillor Seedland is an important seat, and every other elected position is an important exercise for democracy and going forward for every kind of consideration. But yes, NPP mu incumbent ladi. Iti alon na banko kam binyame modol biji ni ko di wole bakare file en de. Yes, dol kay wol ka fol ka ante de me ya dina mbadi la wala dol ka je wala nyama ko benn carte keso wa fi kanet so modol sa fay ko ni ko carte fay carré sa fay be jelle di la na mbeje di la okay, no problem ba fay lene. Some people are like that, and you just have to talk to them about the reality. At the end of the day, in membe tol bulu ka bondi bulu wada ko ko. But Fonyi is not an NPP stronghold. Fonyi predominantly is an APRC stronghold. Molba katakane to J penetrate depend ninko mbe generally le Fonyi village all siata jele and then every location near Blal so like a Blal will support. But Nias and the APRC la support le siata jele because Babeli bota jailer. You know. So let's see whether these differences will reflect in presidential election. Nada could NP for NPP BJ win la kotenko or not. Malo bekelanya. December 2020 for Karkonondol Benate Masimal Nyala inshallah. So Mbajela loko bebela nyam.
The reason why I'm bringing this, I get a family, you haven't talked about issues, and then some of these things had happened in past. Kaya fanang eje win, I mean, with all this brouhaha going on in the country, I mean, yakuma killing for jomo tonyal, ndafondan dongol, ndafondan dongol, near Jersey dealer. If you give them football jersey, they support you. Literally, they tell you that me kalamude or kalamuda. I mean, recently now that Kabin Taliban Sude Jamo Lo Tangi, and then they
Ajamo lo tanje.
they reach out to them.
Okay.
So they reach out to them, and then boys will call me a kalamude fanambola kalamuta, and then they are in support of him now because I believe they've promised them of something of such. I think what do you think need to be done? Civil society organization, opposition parties, put Kajako Kanyim barring break down a bit.
So,
Because
I mean,
that is the government mindset.
mon sita anole ka tonya fo mole ko ntade cafe weekend dollar sare do ekoro dindala that has nothing to do with whether I will vote for you or not, to be honest. And wo mol fana mesiare mol be jele menul foriada nga dol ngoy wol ka ko an president baro ana san jele bo nyin silo kan katama kan nda karre fayla dol ko fole now but individuals la menul ka bilal ma ko pour yakarte ki so soro, but not at a public service like the government. Wala do ko len ka banko dingol be sembentia ka do ko ke bilal to menul yaron ko banko kannen mol bele kanyan dawdo me ya faye me ma faye mol bele ka namo jo do bulal bele ka namo jo namo ka budla bel do so wo fatam fansifa o manye nakake unfortunately akakele. So ngalong itele be fenkota atole those civic education fenkol so you can also use your people and so on purka mol karandi kare fa mu nyantoleti and nyantole me alon ko mu manyana so na kila sama wafi yela sama wafi nyatala yela sama wafi dala sekele na so yalo wo fana na fatewol ni mona da punyi make fine. But that is good. But if an ela sama jibe itela mirero ko mense banko samba no mense banko tamani no anyama yadi wal. The issue of men kalamta nkawal kalamta wasiatal ka be society konole bari ntema wo equate to the most important position in the country, and that is presidency. Ndeta wo equate lawdo mose kalamta no ya kalamta ni na ta ya kula nsite na kula woni na kate fa man kilin ngater ma jamal le soto in the area of politics, but does not mean ko imanya na ka tonya fo moye kolbe larin nyamen ise tonya fo moye wo nyama mala obe teriati nyala wote teriati nyala because ni ka wuli afo moye na meta ba jelal kuma nin jelala ni be politician o bala lungo ka fa kana wori boy be win nale hay jang ngon diam tan dongole be karte fayle ne ni mo na win ni kate fa ka kontiro ke te ka damen fam fo we wona to mo ganyo ba jela ko te ka wuli adam bal fa Ani among more kanumen ka fay ko malle ja win because this is the current reality. He might trust that person because the person has been honest to him. Nte jama jama ni politician ol kata de nka wolo foye. Ninga ma mira ko ebe win na nyin kan ka foye ne. Ila wino fanan ka foye ne ah yemo jamal sot la budum foye win na foye win na those things belongs to kind of they are informed by my societal observation. Anumbuka ofali no ka kuma do foye.
Tumamba kachala bana dam walam tam limit jama bali atani je ko tam limit ba gambe democracy ni aba cripple wala democracy ni aba la full la back kabin slovenia role at mo jamal ko president baro manyana tala ta even though mo jamal aje ko as a winning no election on but now when it comes to the issue of the that term, what is your take about it when it comes to the issue of this data?
Yeah, that time, Kamala, I don't know. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Those kind of sayings, adages. Yes, it reflects Gambia Mantara monarchy, Gambia Mantara kingdom too. So ngamire ko leadership nabi diala ni be nyato na meda ise janke ya fude ntede mbe menke kan ndangan singolo janne so akanya ntala moita au moral consideration right. That's my belief. Nte personally, I don't even believe in two terms. Nte I believe in a single term. But any other mo jamaka two terms limit leje, that is fine. Nte malafa mo nyanda ka mol president ya fam for beyond sanji lulu. What for? Like ke kende jamale banko kam musu kende jamale banko kam mo kende jamale be banko kam. Meli alongo ye leadership is a cool time and all. Nite demanding ke tela way tela formula tela style is a jenke do fana yaka woka call sony andile. But ni mo killing kabe tulaji. Njikitale ko, if you listen to the early speeches of Yaya Jambe when he came at the time, Babli Manza, Nana Seltala speech Dokan was in the 90s. Ake kia Badibule.
Yeah, but
New video jube ye la my president jamena la kafo mol kamenul fo meyatina etolie jawra la government nin topul. He okuma kangol sahayat okuma kangol betiat. But then along the line, for yamana ko ila diang ko le nyinti ko, idia ko le nyinti ko, mol be fala je, mol kalol be filla dolbe, mol be yema na ku jamal be kela. Of course, development agendas natale karambongol lotal ku jama ku kende jamal keda bara jama jama fanan keda. Mala o muila dia ko de. Bari mo be dem fengo kana ke damba tari wala ko le so ni meta je doron ku jamal le kana wulwa kono isa ngani soro gon tolde we want to come for 6 months ngalo wala kala soldiers with a difference 6 months
yeah,
not turn into how long 22 years but
exactly.
that was not the plan so on the fair President Barrow, NPP man for more la for succession. NPP mo Jamal Libije menul they can succeed the president. But the president ko nunko pati na pati be dindi yaldo nintara abe falare bar nga mo jamale be mel se pati nyin taman na manjer nga mol tol fo NPP ko lo mila do ko waleti ni wo be kela so tatam ko to dal komen sauver me tandi ko mo jamal ko abe demokrasi nyin yandi lale aba sembo do yandi lale ase kudol wulufa mol ma menje so nte tatam ko nda man tara two times so sakora tatam yeah but luale yeah man tara two times so sakora tatam so lua wala man tatam samana but because so mol kata ya long gambe kata nyabe nin ko me ye febo ye o semen lua le man lafi men ye moral consideration samor mo jamal ko wala right but nente nyininka I don't think tatam is a good idea for the president he did what he can do from 2016 to 2026 alhamdulillah lata nyin nako ning amanta tatam la ko siata nyaaw anin bunya se fintino jela anin fujamal se fintino bari ning ata ta tamla win fine naman na winde wala felo be jaw yala katambi na tra maron ta tamla so nte ngaje wala nyam
Tuma janin be bulala. We have like 2 minutes to go or thereabout. Janin be bulala. I mean, there are questions me na kwala fake in kawala. Even though you are a professional, but I think you also have a civic right. In a government politics, be la la la. Mojamal siat andu njikita ko mojamal be yela na fanam. I mean,
mhm
naja ko doila party ni kera modi mi anoko la party nyaton ko they step down. Purka jako
mhm
ka modul bule tambi wa fananyina. What
oh
was your take on that when it comes to politics?
yeah sure mang leadership hierarchy ning karam but now ne ko they have a new secretary general isn't it
Mm-hmm.
but what is the flag bearer situation in Doi? Is the secretary general the flag bearer currently or they are yet to decide on that?
I believe they are yet to decide on that.
Yeah, so the leadership, the portfolios, kaw reshuffle, ngalum patil be kaw kele, though certain positions be je wolbuka falling.
Well, look at Male.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
more about it.
ninko what amanke mabali kuti de. It's more like sometimes nina da fenkola. There are certain positions model kava nga carry trust le to be in that. You know, UDP amam bota fenkola that na boyo SG fango computer nung yeah another birmitin DJ amana.
No, musola bute. Guy musola bute.
No, musuma bude SU jadolde. So position on kafele every party ka internal democracy sort. There are certain position dol bije dol kajel ko amanjeri ngi bondije. What tuta party la tamandiri nyale bulu. Doi yes kudos to them. Ye position Jamal ye position dol falling. Ila flag bearer fenko that's the presidential race. Mo follow malo to benya. But it is very good. It is well done. Ya kele anu anyinya tale abeti atale pati dol fane tal kele position dol falinta dol mam falin wol bije like the UDP itata being akalam tale menketa mol wuyu wata al ngata fenko to internal primaries mol tata primary school dol graduate dol man graduate dol tata junior school dol be primary school ansa so primary school ketale menul yake I think it was all in the media. It was transparent. But Menkena, double popularity in the UDP base is unshakable. People just naturally love him. And you cannot take away from people the love they have for him. Wobijele. I think that also translates into the primary voting starting Nyame. UDP lual to menul be severin je ko ike la primary conduct kata the grassroots consultation da yenaye primary scare mo jamal le bije there are very good people within at that panel nimbo fola dabo bijele you have the bori esture bijele there's Amadou Sane wol
Jeda.
bi talib nyol be wol kono je dabo nyol be wol kono wol mol mu me kono all those are great individuals and momo ya win dabo alana dabo harjala I don't think inducement keda to woto kafako ibadila dabla by force momo nata la kela chance try what chance try o kono ala e dabo harjela ayata just like other internal democracies may to me so long kare fayo kage moka win fairly mol be nya menja I think that is what matters as far as those laws are concerned mbo wala
So, but last question. Last question. Opposition will send ending UDP la banyara kabin survey keraning. You know, from the past election and whatnot. Um, certainly, but constitutional building of sorry, coalition building of a but it more jumala perception of in the walamko. You know, the majority, a party that got the majority, that is UDP.
Mhm.
Their leadership need to step aside. Burka party don't endorse. I mean, what's your take on that? Because all
Can
over the
you can
world,
you can you is
Jama Jama.
it what you think karo is muruno akane bang iko mine for step aside mo fahamba.
Okay, so Jama Bal Bije, I becoming for Wolam Ko near the Bita coalition building UDP la flag bearer Wolam Usina Davanyana Kela Multimia Noko. Atanyana Modola endorse la Wolam Itala Momanyana Tamila. For me, it was little bit weird to me though, because Jama Jama, Mia Noko, Italy majority sort of, Walla Multimia Noko, Walla Tambiñato. But Italco, they have to go into equal pace, Purkajako, flag bearer in Tombo. When it comes to coalition building, what is your take about it when it comes to majority leading? Walla they should go apart.
Yeah, no coalition building. Ate be nyame. Ate aman divine revelation sort of. Alamang mal mokina morgan kahumala be coalition of build nyame. So we cannot take reference to any religious scripts and so on. The coalition, no, this is my personal opinion and take. I yes, I think all sort of kule ba koma dal. I there is a reason for it. Well, in
Mhm,
Kala Africa Ganyela, right?
mhm,
Me not on the opposition party Jubi. Last election menketa. That is our benchmark for election. You understand? Obviously, kuja malketa. What benchmark near Jubi right now? BT Lola. It at a J, right? Yeah, opposition party Esa Fall, the late Abdullah Jambe, Mama Kande, Halifa Salah of Doi. A total is 163,795. You understand?
mhm,
Ni boto woto, ni tata UDP Dambala total is 238,000. So 253. Karte kese Willy Kemefula, Will Tansaba will say, Kemefula, Talul anin Saba, UDP Dambaye Wole Soto. They are bigger than the rest of the opposition combined as far as the latest benchmark is concerned. If you go by another record, that is national. LGA electional menul keta. You understand?
That is local government election.
Local government election men keta num.
Mm.
UDP it only tara kakarte sort in terms of popular votes more than even the incumbent. You understand? Ila number siata the rest of the opposition combined tile. Wala tinan jama jama ka foyeko. How could we forget about our numbers? Ila fa coalition. Ne it dolbe je wala vote population ni mansia. Sorry ila mol mile karne fa mansia. Mama Kande is ranked number 3. Mama
Mm.
Kande is ranked number 3. Niaji be 105,902. Then in a doi sort of with Halifa Salah 32, 4, 35, and so on. So here ela number waratale wala netul franca fo but coalition tuta kachabulu il faut se kacha numbers are important but nda fanam fi kacha fo o seke kay ko kacha tel kala randa ko fengo bondi idambal oppositions yes ye kacha every single vote counts yes ye kacha but aba koleala le fanam pour momi alongo ay 2000 votes soto wena kabe tambel 105,000 team amaka UDP fa dambati let's say the previous gama participate lo fengo men findanu like they put Ezafal Mama Kande and other people in the ring. Mama Candela GDC, they have 105,902. Esa file has a 7206. Whilst near individual, maybe most have exam loyalty, international exposure, and so on. But Mama Fanabafle, local based, and that's what matters in our elections.
Exactly.
So more yellow weight sort of, and the biggest weight is the support of the electorates that translates to the votes that you have. So Puria for Nindo etami nyato, Nimbafla go, I am more educated, I'm mafa wole for the example for Nimol Bafla this one is more educated, internationally exposed, Nindo ko hey, ntani na jimara, ntani na jana, ntani na nying, ntani na KM, ntani na jana, Nanga for mantela katesi adeta, etenata kataminte nyato, wala nanko, you see a kacha, but as far as numbers are concerned, ibeni la level le. But face a catadro. But Dr. Malfela Nada, he might have a different take on that than.
Dog was, dog ya time only dog fight.
No, dog benu life le yalo Gambia ibuka hanyi dog la. Dog, gal buka hanyi la moja mal complain da iga vinyo ko hayo boy mal mobe life le kotenge boy. Ani sami da. Ngoy ma be life le ko je
But
akamine sila.
yeah,
Ani
yeah,
amine
yamin foten the mother wala fokang. Yalong moron ninyo nakarote daming. Itanin talati na la tabulo kang. Ndani wole kiliye nanang. Eko ite min fo wole bekela. You understand me? Moro hani sula kunda bukake. So and the important thing would be there is no way we can actually try to downplay figures when it comes to politics because politics is about numbers. Now,
Indeed.
where politics is about numbers, it doesn't mean not a tabuloka. It's just like Gambia telling America what to do.
What
Like you go to the United Nations conversations, America is more or less the major funder, but then of course it's the major player there, and then Gambia wants to tell America, "Hani atol tanyinkele ntole be fenkele teng." Ata keno la wanyama. But the whole point is all about egos. We need to put our egos aside and work on the reality that exists.
Indeed.
But also, there is also one point that people cannot also, deliberately neglect those facts because we had an opposition here earlier. And we've also seen some of the things that actually derail those efforts.
Effort.
And to avoid a repeat of those, we also need to play a lot of consciousness to the people that are coming together. Because Wolfanan Kerala Nunga model the kind of politics they played in that actually led to some kind of things many along Moluma Lano Sotokotenke. So Gambians need to be reassured. And of course, there is no way you can tell me that Moro. Ita ning karadam fula wara wala naranda ning fula narango ko hani intolong kapten ol intolong fengol bedi oba kenola nyadini. But look at how coalition 2016 was built. The worst candidate emerged victorious. You know why? Because it's from the biggest group and the most influential group. It was not because of Ala Hamhamo, Ala Londo, or Ala Fahamuro. Hani Yentela Tano, Tenunkara president.
Indeed.
So, but that tells you that this particular party, like the United Democratic Party, is a formidable force. And it has the numbers. And whoever they pick at the time would emerge because they had influence over the smaller parties, who, even though each of them came with 70 delegates, but they were able to convince them because they were actually the leading opposition. Can they do that in 2026? Of course they can. But a minka cool man and the wall this mentality of Gambians where people have egos and then they try to see everything in a superiority light. And then if you don't know how to communicate, then in a simple majority system where it is not a 50 plus one, ba fala ko e kon tol do yara manda file. Ha
Yeah.
manda la fale kam mbe fo.
Mhm.
Oro nimbe fo da Gambia la fo da.
Gambia for that guy.
So bara nimbe fanan ba so la fanan. Ay ketilongo nin tonya kante na kana kenyo nakaroti. This
Mhm.
is
Indeed.
where the fears lie, and this is where
But
the
but
thin
but
line
but
is.
though Gambians are afraid, again to bring peoples together. They have done this in 2016, and the coalition has failed. They failed Gambian. They failed
I
both.
want to say something about the coalition has failed. Well, he Alifasala debated Dr. Cisse on that on the failure of coalition. You don't want to go on a debate with Alifa on that.
No,
But
Madlo Mad, Madla Burani.
no,
Let's
no,
say
no. Alifan and Dr. debate on that.
Ani hala ani wol bele debate ani
Ali
ani
been
dekala
debate on
ani
that.
madi fanan debate.
Yes, okay. So coalition believe ko inata me naka Jambe bondi yewo kele. Other things he more okay, but the biggest fear at the time was Jambe going, which they did, and you have to commend them for
And
that
that is
part.
why people need to
no,
understand
Tuba.
that
I
I
mean,
will not consider I will
Gambian
not
did
That's
that.
consider
one
that
part of it.
coalition
Imagine
failure.
if
Gambian voted for them because they wanted to remove Jambe, not the coalition. Coalitions la mandate movement, the one of reforms thing, and in order
Ambe
to
wala la mbe na
improve.
But
dele
time,
ali
the
umbe o
primary
dele la
goal.
yewo kele ye Jambe bondi la say in other four reforms la what fana beje that can be seen as a failure, but the
That
biggest fear.
that is the necessity for the coalition 2026. The coalition 2016 had
16
two
yeah.
objectives: remove Jammeh and bring about reforms. Jammeh was removed, achieved, but of course the person who was elected, was hell bent on self-perpetuation and decided to neglect those reform agendas. Then the Gambia need to come back to the drawing board and form another coalition for reforms.
Indeed.
And then when the coalition comes to power, they make sure they deliver on those reforms. Because the one that actually was ushered in to bring about that reform came in and, of course, realized that power is so sweet that they did not want to go. And, of course, those who were actually perpetrating crimes against the people turned out to be the darlings of the regime. And now they are the ones controlling the government. So, therefore, they have neglected every reform agenda that they were actually, brought in for. The 3 years agenda was neglected. Self-perpetuation is now, is something that they are going about. Institutionalized corruption, and of course, no constitution, no reforms, and all of that. Now, the next coalition is not about removing a dictator; it's about removing a manipulator.
Tuba, what do you take on that?
Yeah, well, Mali kuma kilimfo jang niaji be call for abala fa warta ye Gambia Jube. Ye Gambia Jube in 2016 kolben koleari nyamen at the time. Jiko dida barola ko nana de kube kelale. Je Sidinjai was one person. Sidinjai was one person who was in not like against his personality, but what he did. I think he was the very one, Mayor Alonko, Adela was like being a minister for 3 minutes here and there. And then Adela Kumakawa Atina, how many people were running away to Senegal at
But
that
yeah,
time? But
yeah.
B, that
Mm.
same person is actually like one of the most powerful people in the country. Ndete Wokelano. Like that could not have been me or many
But
other
this
people.
is
How could that have happened?
the good and the bad side of these things should serve as a lesson to every Gambian.
Mhm,
Wala na nindanga oppositional je damal benyo kelela. If
mhm,
Barrow can bring Sidinjai as one of the most influential persons in this government, his
mhm,
interest is to remain in power. If Barrow can bring in Mamadou Sabali, min kaya ko hani ya jame, furiel officiated,
mhm,
into his state house, then that means that person knows how to play with power. If that person could go even to ya jamela korda kono,
mhm.
Kaka for what and after that anyway reconcile just for political power. Why is the opposition busy castigating each other when they could actually come together to realize that we have, a collective action problem, that our egos should not be what matters, but how to come together to remove this regime and bring about those meaningful reforms and change that this country deserves. That after that, more basic but then there will be a level playing field that is already created for all people. But again, if Barrow could bring his worst enemies or probably his worst critics into his cabinet, and then told them malmen yalongo because in the border caranyol can entara lumfang cartara lova and control all the maltinala no yoga. Do we really care about this country? Do we actually see the playbook of this regime? Are we really understanding numbers as they are coming out from surveys and what they are communicating? And then they are only telling us one thing. only through coming together will give us the desired results. Otherwise, it's a simple majority system. You can have your 200,000 votes, and then somebody could have his 5 votes. It win and that win. Namunambe manfo. Abukolo koninke kana na raka bentol be bute la janinga de nasa bute, but nin kon killing bekela lam fong asambe bute. Munamana jarrala. This is the point, because if now, with everything that Sabali and Sise and other people said about the regime, they still brought them into their system to do what? To shut them up, and of course to actually get people to get on. But why can the opposition be open enough to allow other people to say, Moro, we might have our differences, but at the end of the day, at this point in time, we have a collective action problem, and that requires collective efforts to bring about the meaningful change. Then and thereafter, Momo after Mineta, okay, this is what the numbers are telling us. We've seen this is not rocket science. We know what needs to be done, but unless we put the egos aside and believe in the fact that the Gambia need to be salvaged, and of course reforms need to be done, and the right things got to be done, Moro, Mimbeta Sondo Mokono is not what is important, is what the country needs, that needs to be prioritized. And then, to
Yeah.
be honest, Moro, I can say that I don't support probably UDP or I don't support another party, but you cannot distort facts. You cannot
Exactly.
remove what people have. Moro,
Yeah.
abuko binin sirang ko no tuba man na fodo. Moro, tuba fan ya drone la wala. Oh, I sit down and
Indeed.
say no. Ali knows numbers more than Tuba. Bro, more time minti wadiala.
Yeah.
Ini man nyambenda, but then whenever you actually have a common problem, make sure that the agreements are done, you know, reasonably, but on facts and on things that are deliverable. But not to
Indeed.
go all the way into it for some people to turn around and go, amantara teng amantara. Ofana manke kude minka lanno sabatin dide. So
No,
kukil na
no.
ben yung kulo kono mo be yala no ko ada manyanta talali. Bara lanna bali yala be oppositional da mal tem. Hey, kar koto minka da no wata kela kotenk. And UDP as the biggest, it all nyanta finti like a dum mola can to reassure them. And ke susundina. But you don't also sit at your corner to say, e karanyo la mota lul dorona bolo bolo, let them come and join us. You make people to feel that you do tan lale. Well, ndolanga na society londe. Nko, most of funya onya, huh? Niya
Yep.
horma and
Oh
that is
yes,
the
without
strength.
a
That is the
doubt.
strength of this regime. The strength of the regime is that you can criticize them 24 hours, but they will be busy 24 hours trying to bring you on their side. Ananga nyumbang ko do kun tolle den tanyi na sare to be man tra do kule be timbal yani tapal yani sunyaro laje ka fo ko lon do ko Moro, you can be anything in this country. Come on, and we join hands. Moro, it's not about becoming something. It's about doing the right thing for the collective good of the Gambian people. And
Yep.
this is what the opposition need to understand, that it's not about them individually wanting those positions, but it's about the collective need of the country, that this country need to be salvaged. And this is what data is telling you. This is what research is telling you. This is what scientists are telling you. So the politicians must basically be out there to fund science and to make sure that science gives them those informations that they will
Indeed.
use to bring about the meaningful change. Ni
Wow.
woman get wrong, but Allah fambarandi can song la wrong, and then the regime will continue to be there. And then the malanga si ya le control mo so mane maje fana mo win.
Yes,
Opposition
exactly.
the malbe nyokela la mana fala bola.
What's your
Yeah,
take? What's your take?
hopefully the oppositions will, like you said, the UDP, who are the big brothers there with their numbers. Hopefully, you're doing more baking to convince them to join them, and so that they can put a better fight against the incumbent in December 2026.
I hope
Anyway,
so.
Abaraka, Budumalum, yeah.
But that
No,
should be, I think that was already a wonderful conversation. I joined in late, but button.
No,
Guy,
it's
guy
fine.
do
Your
cool.
contribution is great. You know, more for Calvia numbers. Ibiko will dispute no because happy jail. Remember, Jebiko Bondi no, but the strategies come out to the Kachabuli memfo in Seattle Nyawanya, Mite no Malenge Kajande, until Amanja Fana for Intelisiade. The left alley Nayaka for Mangadoko and a Kolkat and Ake Gambia. I'm sure
Nga,
the oppositions will strategize and
abuka
hopefully
ke
they'll be
kafuma
able to
fangora,
do
nga
that.
kafunyoka.
Ha,
I don't,
yeah,
ego
indeed.
kumo mi ati nya fonyalo.
Mhm.
The opposition need to come together. And at the end of the day, at the back of our mind, moro, ngalon ne tonya bedaming. So at the end of the day, those things might not necessarily be pronounced or whatever. Nenda malwe sirin ngai bamba buwa mimbulu ngalon ne. So ngana nyobarandi. And then ngara football la fana mi mbeno karadam fola ngolon ne. It does not
Those who
need to
they
be
more
said.
gonna, yeah, those no need
Exactly. So some things are
to.
just rather not said. But the important thing is that you need 11 man into the pitch and everybody plays a key role. And at the on the best player in there, you need all of those people. It's just like systems. Systems are built through a combination of what? Organ and organ systems. It's just like the human body. You move from cells to whatever, but each of those single particles that you think you want to neglect, if you neglect them, you will kuranale.
Yeah.
And that is the political, diagnosis of the Gambian society today. Only one single party, any more than mala so they don't neglect la drong. It might have an impact on the results of the election because it's a simple majority system. Now that come, it's like a 50 plus one is avoko more after the first round, the opposition will all come and join the leading one. But that is not the case. So therefore, even if you are the biggest opposition, you should actually play, the lowest to make sure that you get everybody. And wobe keno la horomo nimbunya intolerance la konola. But it is yika akaranyol mota lulla bolbul. Karanyol inko mo 500 da bolbul. Ita bolo mol doyakan. Ne bol doyakan the incumbent is doing everything to get them. So politics is about numbers, and we need to go and get the numbers. And getting those numbers does not mean that sit at your corner and compel people to come and join you. No, you need to seek an all-inclusive government that will bring all this opposition under one umbrella to believe that this change is about reforms. This coalition should be for coalition for reforms.
Yes,
Last question.
Ali, 1 second. Yeah, my thing is important. Hopefully, the
No,
opposition
I have a
leaders,
question for you,
opposition.
Yenny Bida. I have one question for Yenny Bida. Coalition without APRC, Northern Alliance, and Mama Kande would be very difficult, even with UDP, with all the Spurka Jaboka President Borough Bondi. And then Mama Kande and, Northern Alliance might
Yeah,
have
let's put it this way for the sake of unity. Let's put it this way: a coalition with all opposition parties will put a
Right.
better fight against, because Ningombina out there section fanana without this, without a like Malbi Mafuka, every number counts. Ibe kumaya ta jile. Ngabanko jube doram. Any other UDP less yara, then followed by Mama Kande, as well for the most recent data being a major, and if 2021 is any benchmark to refer to, UDP less yara, then followed by Mama, and but everyone is important. Every number counts. It's a simple majority race. Mem follow futata first to poll them, first pass poll, mem follow futata dorong wole be winners. So every opposition party movement is important. So hopefully, yeah, but for menka kolea dal mal na experience. I was in Gambia and I've spoken to and I met a few political leaders. Ekajele doron all of them pretty much want to be the de facto leader, or actually want to be the flag bearer. E kan diam modo e science ane wona ta ka fo ko ha bar yalon defana laftale yen tambe nyaarum ko bara ko nyama ko albe sila la le kaja. And never go for it. And I never told anyone go your numbers are small. I'll tell you, but you can't just come with half bread and then in a tapalapa kunsaba.
Yalo, with all that, it's good that they're ambitious. It's good that they want to lead. But when we got to the negotiation table, it's a give and take. Well, now you have negotiations. Negotiations are to give and take. It's not for you to come with a simple mentality. Even the biggest would come with a mentality that they got to give and take. It's not that and then this is how it's going to be. In every negotiation, you give and take. There are things that, of course, you need to let go, and there are things that you got to take. And that is where compromise come into the whole equation. And in a simple majority system where it's not a 50 plus one, no matter how small another opposition is, you got to give them that equal respect, because it all what do I nyawnya, what do I say the balunu, and what do I sadino itala, and what do I sadino on tolubela. So the whole point now is that these people are all equal no matter what. But of course, we know where the facts are. When a leader is picked within the opposition, bench, we all need to understand that our collective action problem is the regime that got to change, and reforms got to be, put in place in the Gambia. No matter what, people just need to put their egos aside, man, and believe in reality, and make sure that if the Gambia is what really they want to salvage, I don't think anybody would seek a self, whatever, selfish agenda or something. You would look for the collective good of what the Gambian people are saying. When the
Well, your
lafon
last
nintel jibe
last statement.
mo keme ka dumba kono kataka fa mo keme do be lurim bande ka ko the next kulungombe dunna kono langata.
But dog, atala burfo nongol dunda. Well, sense and burfo.
Nga jela foye. So hundreds are
And go
dying,
back,
and
I go
hundreds
kill
are
on
still
Yadi, the
waiting to go.
for Bruford, Family to live in Dubai, over Kelon Yadi, Dubai and Golf and Tada, over Kelon Yadi.
Ora iko yela kumala wanglo fo furu bi ka chanyi nga continue wat do atol beto nyere kolto.
Dubai and Golka, Algana boy Califa
Eh,
Play, Alka do Kulunga Alka to
nga Dubai tuje nga dum kulunga yala do kolom ngal ma jabo dadi yala marchero bal wala be kole yare.
I mean, Alma Parancel Daddy Alam.
Kuba,
Yo.
your last statement.
Yeah, I mean, I barely for the war. Maybe we are looking forward to December 2026. Molia Findia Carte 5. survey fanang let people not downplay it. Every number counts. Ndaka ol fumole ani kube reported malame na obula je dorong, but use this as an intelligence point to re-strategize and then work on what the survey is. Because in a simple majority race, and it survey on 3 people like, take it seriously because every vote is important. So yep, that's it.
Oro.
Dog, yeah.
Almati loto dialo. Kalmo gambia.
All right,
Amin,
thank you.
amin, amin. All right,
Yeah.
abaraka, Allah baraka. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.